I never imagined that my act of kindness would reveal a heartbreaking secret about her past. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It started like any other Saturday. The sun peeked through my bedroom blinds, casting stripes on the floor. But there was a heaviness in the air, something unseen and chilling. I was exhausted from the bitter arguments with my parents. Every word felt like another stab wound to my already fragile heart. I made my way to the local coffee shop, the place that offered me refuge. As soon as I stepped inside, I noticed her Sophie. She always sat by the window, scribbling in her worn notebook. Her coffee was usually cold, sitting untouched for hours. But there was something different that day. Her eyes, usually bright, were clouded with pain. I felt a pull, a magnetic force drawing me closer. When I approached her, she flinched, as if I was a ghost knocking on the door of her sorrow. "Hey, mind if I join you?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She looked up, hands trembling, and nodded. I slid into the chair across from her. The wood creaked beneath me. I could see her pulse quicken. I felt a knot in my stomach, a sense of dread wrapping around me. As we exchanged small talk, I noticed a faded scar peeking from her long sleeve. It gently beckoned my curiosity. I asked her about it, my heart throbbing in uncertainty. That's when the floodgates opened. Tears streamed down her cheeks, each one a sacred drop of her hidden pain. She squeezed her hands together, as if trying to bind the pieces of her shattered past. "It's just a reminder," she finally said, her voice shaking, "of who I used to be." Her words pierced through the air, each syllable heavy with regret. She began to share her story, a web tangled in tragedy. Lost family, lost friends, a life lived in the shadows. And then there it was, the sudden gasp, a revelation that snuck up on me like a thief in the night. "The accident," she murmured, her eyes reflecting the weight of the words. "My sister. I was supposed to save her. How could one act of kindness lead to such darkness?" My heart raced, pounding against my ribcage. I was frozen, suspended in time, trying to grasp the enormity of her grief. The room grew silent, only the sound of our breaths filling the space between us. A profound vulnerability lay open. I could feel the world around us fade into a blur, as if we were the only two souls at the edge of a cliff, staring down into an abyss. Suddenly, Sophie's phone chimed, jolting me back. She flinched with the sound, a sudden color rushing to her cheeks. Her hand trembled as she reached for it. I could sense the dread tightening her throat. What did she expect? Something good, or another pang of sorrow awaiting her? The tension in the air thickened, swirling around us as her gaze fixed on the screen. But before she could answer, a knock at the door echoed through the cafe. The stranger who entered seemed to carry an energy that crackled in the air. Conversations hushed at the sight of him. His eyes scanned the room before locking onto Sophie's. My breath caught. Could he be part of her past? Another ghost rising from her pain? I leaned forward, heart racing. What was the connection? What did he know? 1,000 questions danced in my mind, each one more desperate than the last. Just as I opened my mouth to speak, Sophie's face turned ashen. Her eyes widened in horror. I felt the world slip from under my feet as I realized that look held more secrets than we could ever imagine. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The atmosphere in the coffee shop shifted palpably as the stranger stepped further into the room, his presence commanding attention like an unwelcome storm cloud. Sophie's breath caught, her eyes wide, vulnerability transforming into panic. I could almost hear her heart racing, echoing the chaos within. It felt as if we had stumbled upon some great tragedy in a twisted tale of moments suspended in an eerie silence. "David," she whispered, barely audible, as if saying his name would conjure him closer. My mind spun, grasping at the fragmented pieces of her story, attempting to stitch together the chaos unfolding before me. Who was this David? The shadow that hovered over her past. Waiting for the perfect moment to plunge back into her life, did he move toward our table, each step heavy with purpose. As he drew near, I noticed the worn leather jacket he wore, the scuffed boots, and the momentary mask of defiance that flickered across his face. But in his eyes, I saw a vulnerability that mirrored Sophie's, a deep sadness that spoke of lost connections and untold stories. "Sophie," he said, voice thick with a mixture of remorse and urgency, "I didn't expect to see you here." Each word seemed to hang in the air, steeped in implications I was not yet privy to. The very air around us felt electric, pulses writhing with anticipation that I glanced from Sophie to David, desperately searching for clues while the coffee shop faded around us. Our table, once a sanctuary, felt like a battleground. "What do you want?" Sophie's voice quavered, fierce yet trembling, a facade of strength worn over the scars. "That we need to talk," David replied, taking a tentative step forward. That simple phrase echoed like thunder, resonating within the silent confines of our hearts. What desperately needed to be said? I could sense the words Sophie was struggling to voice, a tempest of emotions swirling just beneath the surface. Did he come to dredge up her pain further? A wrong turn could unleash the floodgates once again. "Talk?" She scoffed, bitter laughter intermingling with sadness. What could there possibly be to talk about? An unseen tension clung to Sophie, where her fragile walls had begun to crack. I reached for her hand instinctively, an anchor amidst the storm. Sophie's fingers stiffened in response, hesitant yet longing for connection. A momentary sparkle of hope flickered before the impending darkness. David's expression softened. "I'm here to help you." But before he could complete his sentence, the tremor in Sophie's voice cut through, raw and unfiltered. "Help me?" She repeated incredulously, eyes narrowing. "You think you can help me fix what happened? You think you have any right to just waltz back into my life after everything?" The air vibrated with the force of her words, each one brimming with unprocessed grief. He flinched at the vehemence in her voice, but stood his ground. "It wasn't my choice, Sophie. I did what I could to keep you safe." "You have to understand, safe?" She interrupted sharply. "What do you know about safe? You weren't there. You didn't have to watch her." Her voice broke, the tension unraveling as fresh tears carved their path down her cheeks. The world felt impossibly small, and I could hardly bear to watch her unleash this torrent of anguish. David's face fell, regret etched deep within the lines of his skin, an unwelcome reminder of the weight they both carried. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, voice drenched in sorrow. "I thought you'd heal if I stayed away." "I didn't know what?" She snapped, cheeks flushed with emotion. "That grief doesn't dissipate with distance. That you couldn't just pretend it never happened." "Maybe I was wrong," he admitted, as if surrendering to the consequences of their shared past. "But there are things you need to hear. Things I didn't tell you that might explain." My heart raced, caught between their shared pain and my own helplessness. This revelation, whatever it might be, could cut deeper than I dared imagine. Before I could process my thoughts, Sophie stood abruptly, shaking her head in defiance. "I don't need this," she declared, her voice quivering with a mixture of resolve and despair. She turned to me, her eyes pleading, searching for anything to cling to. "Let's go," she whispered, and without waiting for my response, she stepped toward the exit that I knew I had to follow. But the weight of David's gaze remained chained to me. There was a fragment of truth hidden in his eyes, a story that begged to be told. But Sophie was slipping away, the door creating a fragile barrier between them, the intensity of her pain seeping into the very fabric of my being. As I hurried after her, I caught one last glimpse of David, a haunting sorrow clouding his face. A piece of my heart ached for him too, but there was no time for second thoughts. I had to focus on Sophie, where the trembling fragility of her spirit demanded my attention. Yet, as we stepped outside, the cold air biting, a chilling sensation crawled up my spine, not from the frost, but from the gnawing uncertainty that clung to my insides. What had been left unsaid? What terrible truth lingered in the shadows between them? With one final glance back at the cafe, I felt a tumultuous storm brewing, a storm entwined with secrets both Sophie and David carried. The moment hung heavy in the air, decisions waiting to be made, as we slipped back into the world, unprepared for the revelations yet to unfold. The streets outside the coffee shop felt alive, Yet all Sophie and I could hear was the echo of our recent confrontation. Each step away from David felt heavier, the weight of unsaid words clinging to Sophie like a shadow. I reached for her hand again, but this time she pulled away, wrapping her arms around herself as if to shield against the frigid air and the deeper wounds inside. "Sophie, please," I urged softly, desperate for her to open up. The city buzzed around Usker's honking, pedestrians chattering, but all I could focus on was the silence swelling between us. "Talk to me. Let me in." Her gaze remained locked ahead, bright tears streaming down her cheeks, catching the light around us. "There's nothing to say," she murmured, her voice barely escaping her lips. But I could see the riptide of emotions crashing within her, pulling her down into thoughts she struggled to escape. "His presence shook something in you." I pressed gently, trying to bridge the gap, not knowing if I was helping or pushing her further away. "You're not alone in this. Let me help." The corner. She finally stopped, planting her feet wide apart, as if attempting to ground herself against the storm of feelings. "You want to help?" She spat, her voice rising slightly. "Then don't push. I just need space." My heart sank, but I couldn't let her retreat into silence. "Sophie, I'll give you space if that's what you truly need. But please, don't shut me out completely." There was vulnerability in my plea, the kind that hung desperate in the air around us. "I care about you. That matters." Her shoulders shook as she took a shuddering breath. "Do you even know what you're asking?" She finally breathed, pain threaded through every syllable. "Do you know what kind of darkness David brings?" "No," I admitted, wishing for any inkling of the truth that loomed over us like a storm cloud. "But I want to." "You mean too much to me to let this go unspoken. You have to tell me what he represents, what he's done, how he hurt you." The intensity in my gaze reflected back what I felt. A fierce determination to understand her pain, to be the lighthouse in the chaos she faced. Sophie's eyes flickered, glancing from the ground to me and back to the bustling city around us. With a heavy sigh, she seemed to collapse into herself, not from surrender, but from exhaustion. "I tried to forget," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I thought I could bury it." "Bury what?" I pressed, my heart racing with a mix of fear and hope. She hesitated, fighting against the swell of reluctance. Before everything happened, I was different. I loved fiercely. David was my world. But he was tangled in something dark, something I couldn't escape, even when I left. The rawness of her confession unfurled between us like fragile petals, delicate yet fragile. "What do you mean?" I urged, inching closer, desperate to shield her from the pain that lay coiled in her words. She looked up at me, her gaze quivering, and for a brief moment, hope bloomed in the starkness of her fear. There were things I didn't now think that he didn't want me to see. He was involved with people who wouldn't let me go. When I broke away, it was chaos, the kind that sends ripples through your entire life. Her breath hitched, and I could see the war at play in her heart. Sophie's gaze fell, and in that instant, I felt the fragile heartbeat of her trauma. "David's back because they found him. They found me. I can't go back to that life. I thought I was safe." She swallowed, fear cutting through her voice, each word a talon digging deeper into my heart. I thought I was free. The realization crashed over me as if a wave had hit, and my blood ran cold at the implications of her words. They? People from my past, people I thought were gone forever. Her confession hung between us, punctuated by the distant sounds of the Sitya blurred reality, a world where Sophie was anything but the resilient woman I had come to admire. And now that David is back, I can't escape what he's brought into my life. Rage surged through me, sheer unfairness of Sophie's burden swelling until it threatened to burst. "Sophie, you aren't alone in this. We will fight this together. Whatever it takes." She met my gaze, and for a fleeting moment, I saw a glimmer of hope dance within her eyes. But just as quickly, it dimmed. "You don't understand, Sam. I can't risk pulling you any deeper into the storm with me. If they come for David, they'll come for me and for you too." She shook her head, terror replacing the hint of light I thought I had found. Before I could respond, a familiar figure stepped through the crowd, a silhouette that stole the breath from my lungs. It was David again, scanning the street with an urgency that made my heart race. "Sophie," he called, desperation evident in his tone as he rushed toward us. "Stay back," Sophie shouted, her voice cracking, and instinctively, I stepped in front of her. David halted, confusion and concern flickering across his face as he raised his hands in surrender. "I'm not here to hurt you." Rage ignited a fire within me. "Just what do you think you're doing? You're the reason she's in pain." Sophie's grip tightened on my arm. "No, don't. I can't do this." And just like that, the tension between us exploded, a bittersweet collision of past and present, a clash of choices that spiraled into an uncertain future. But the moment froze, threatening to unravel all we had built together, bound by empathy and a longing to fight the shadows lurking beyond the horizon. The world held its breath, poised on the brink of catastrophe. As I stared at David, half of me wanting to push him away, the other entranced by the torment that twisted both of their fates. In that heartbeat of silence, I knew we were steps away from a truth that would change everything. The streets pulsed with the energy of the city, yet time seemed to warp in that moment, a fragile bubble holding the three of us hostage. David's presence loomed, infusing the air with tension, as if the mere act of breathing had transformed into an act of defiance. Sophie trembled beside me, her uncertainty mingling with fear that pierced the facade of her strength. "David, you need to leave," she pleaded, her voice a soft but urgent echo in the clamoring chaos around us. "I can't," he replied, his tone dripping with desperation. "I'm trying to protect you. They're coming for us. I swear I didn't mean for you to get caught up in any of this." "What does that even mean?" I bit out, my muscles taut with the instinct to shield Sophie from the reality she desperately wished to escape. David's eyes darted between us, as if he could see threads of unspoken emotions binding me to Sophian aura of connection that seemed to intensify in the face of his admission. "They want to hurt you, Sophie. They think you know something about the cargo. You don't understand. They'll come for anyone associated with me." The words hung heavy in the air, sinking into the cracks of Sophie's carefully constructed walls. I watched her face contort, uncertainty crawling back into her gaze. I remembered how she had spoken about the darkness intertwined with David, how his return had threatened to unravel her world. But now, his frantic words dulled the edge of her determination. "Please, just let me explain," David continued, his voice now a mix of urgency and pleading. "You don't have to go through this alone. I will help you." With each passing second, I felt Sophie's walls cracking, the barriers forged in the fires of her past beginning to falter. It frightened me, the vulnerability of her expression as she debated the truth behind David's frantic declarations. That was not the Sophie I had come to know, a pillar of resilience. The memory of her fierce spirit flickered like a candle in a storm, threatening to extinguish at any moment. "David," I interjected firmly, stepping slightly to the side to subtly shield Sophie from his gaze. "You've done enough damage. She doesn't need your twisted version of safety. You brought this upon her." His eyes flared, a mixture of hurt and indignation. "You think I chose this life? I didn't want any of this for her. I thought I don't care what you thought." Sophie shouted back, her voice echoing against the concrete. "You think you're protecting me? You don't know what they are capable of. I escaped once, and that was hell. I can't go through it again." Her defiance surged through the air, wrapping around us like the city's pulse, and for an instant, I saw shadows shift with inherent ethereal light pushing against the weight of despair. But then her shoulders sagged, the anguished truth reclaiming her. I thought I was free, but now I feel like a ghost just waiting to be hunted down. The air turned electric, crackling with her fear and the relentless tension of our surroundings. My heart raced. My instinct was to hold her, to assure her that she was not alone, but conflicts swirled in unpredictable directions, pushing our emotions like surf against the rocky shore. "Don't listen to him, Sophie," I urged gently, desperate to hold on to the flickering candlelight of her spirit. "You are more than his history. You are safe with me." She looked between us, a torrent of emotions crashing behind her eyes. And just as I felt the first wisps of hope bloom between us, her expression hardened, the protective instinct she had nurtured rising to the surface. "I don't know whom to trust anymore." Within that moment of hesitation, David seized his chance. "I'm begging you. Let me help you both," he implored, his voice shaky. "If you reject me, you'll be pushing away your only chance at safety. They will come for you." I can explain everything. Suddenly, an unsettling reality washed over me. There was a truth that lay buried beneath the fray of desperation, something untold and dark that threatened to shatter us. Is it over? I asked him, the question barely a whisper. The cargo, it's bigger than both of us. It's tied to people who play for keeps. There's no escape unless we work together. His admission rumbled like thunder, shaking the core of what I believed about trust and vulnerability. Sophie stiffened beside me, eyes narrowing, and for a moment, I saw the spark of her fighting spirit ignite once more, clashing against the chains of her past. You think joining forces with you will somehow protect us? Only if you tell me everything. You can't keep secrets anymore, David pressed, his voice raw and earnest. This is about survival, now that it flared in. Unspeakable tension hung thick between us, the clock ticking in ominous tolls that echoed over the city's heartbeat. My thoughts raced, grappling with the fissures of integrity, loyalty, and fear coiling tightly around our circumstances. The ground shifted, and out of the corner of my eye, I noticed shadows moving in the distance, a ripple of darkness threading through the lively streets. Instinct kicked in, and I felt the immediacy of danger. The city, once a refuge, morphed into a potential battlefield. David, is this what you meant? I turned back, heart pounding as small figures began to materialize among the crowd, men in dark coats with a purpose that both bettered the light and shadowed it. His eyes widened, a flash of understanding igniting in his face. They found us. And just like that, reality hit swiftly, a shocking revelation that harshly shifted the trajectory of our lives. As panic surged, I grasped Sophie's hands, our united warmth battling against the encroaching threat. Her eyes glistened, filled with instinctual fight, but coiled beneath them was an unmistakable flicker of uncertainty, fear that wrapped around us as surely as the approaching shadows. No escape, no time to think. Only the frightful knowledge that Sophie and I were forever ensnared in danger's relentless embrace. The world around us merged into a blur as we stood frozen, heartbeats thundering like wild drums against the backdrop of looming danger. The shadows, once mere silhouettes, broke free from the edges of the crowd, becoming solid figures advancing toward us with deliberate intent. Each step they took seemed heavy with malice, an undeniable reminder of the past that wove through Sophie's history like a dark thread. I tightened my grip on her hands, the warmth of her skin grounding me amid the storm of rising panic. We need to move, I urged, my voice barely a murmur above the roar of my mind racing with possibilities and plans. Sophie nodded, her eyes reflecting a mix of courage and the specter of her shattered trust. Sensing the urgency, she cast one last look at David, whose face mirrored our shared terror, realization dawning as quickly as the shadows approached. Run, David shouted, the command roaring up from somewhere deep within him, the fight in his eyes igniting anew. His presence, once a source of trepidation, now felt like a flawed lifeline, an edge cutting through the thick fog of uncertainty. We didn't need further urging. In sync, we started to sprint, hearts pounding in chaotic rhythm as we merged into the crowd that had once seemed so vibrant, now an ocean of potential dangers and hidden threats. Each footfall echoed in my mind, a reminder of what we were trying so desperately to escape. As we weaved through the city streets, Sophie's breath came in quick bursts beside me, a small harbinger of the turmoil coursing through her. What do you think they want? She gasped, her voice trembling like a fragile leaf rustling in the wind. That I don't know, I panted, focusing on the path ahead while trying to reassure her with my presence. But we'll figure it out. I promise you're safe with me. Yet even as the words fell from my lips, doubt slipped in, a whisper of its own echoing in my psyche. Could I keep that promise? Sophie had faced unimaginable struggles. The thought of dragging her back into conflict twisted painfully in my chest. Just as I was about to give voice to my fears, David caught up with us, his face ashen, yet resolute. You need to trust me, he said breathlessly. I know a way to escape. We can go through the old warehouses by the docks. What if they're waiting for us? What if this is just a trap? Sophie's voice trembled as uncertainty crept into her soul. But within her turmoil, I sensed a flicker of our earlier bond, a bond one longed to reinforce. That we can't stand here debating, David said urgently. They are coming. Change tactics if we must, but we have to move. With little choice and time slipping through our fingers like sand, I nodded toward David, allowing our hesitance to slide into action. The docks, the very thought of them clawed at the remnants of my composure. Edge of the city, shadows stretched long under the hazy lights, and danger blossomed in every corner. But more than that, they echoed with memories of Sophie's haunted past. As we dashed toward the edge of the bustling crowd, the atmosphere shifted, an undercurrent of tension swirling, thickening the air around us. My heart raced, caught in the web of uncertainty. Could I really trust David, the embodiment of a tormented history Sophie desperately sought to escape? The past was rolling back like dark clouds threatening to engulf us as we sprinted down side streets, the urgency of the chase propelling us forward until we reached the dimly lit warehouse district. The air felt alive with unspoken secrets as the shadows melded into the dilapidated structures, engulfing us in muted darkness. There, I caught the faint outline of David's anxious gaze darting around, scanning for threats. Together, we ducked behind a rusty metal container, the scent of oil and rust mingling, heavy and stale. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears, drowning out the chaotic sounds of the city against the night. The three of us huddled tight, fear wrapping around us tightly like a shroud, pushing us into whispered urgency. Do you think we lost them? Sophie asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The strain evident in her tone. I don't know, David replied, his certainty faltering. But we can't stay here for long. What is going on, David? I pressed, unable to hold back my frustration any longer. You need to tell us what's really at stake. We don't have to play this game of half-truths anymore. David took a deep breath, a conflicting storm brewing within him. It's complicated, he began, but as he hesitated, shadows began to scatter across the ground around us. A sense of foreboding loomed, and before he could continue, we heard footsteps drawing closer. Out of instinct, I leaned into Sophie, attempting to shield her from the oncoming danger. David's features shifted, fear cutting across his expression, and as the shadows neared, a figure stepped into the light. A figure I recognized. Lucas. His silhouette bore an unmistakable risque elegance, an authoritative presence that had once ignited both fear and intrigue. But the truth was far deeper. Those azure eyes held memories that threatened to unravel the fragile threads stitching Sophie's past to the present. What a tangled web we weave, he smirked, and the chill of recognition swept over me. In that moment, hope faded into the depths of fear and despair, entangled by the web of secrets I never asked to be a part of yet seemed destined to confront. With the clash of our realities now unavoidable, I realized our lives were careening toward an unavoidable standophone that held not only our futures in the balance, but also the burdens of unwitting truth waiting to be unearthed. And as Lucas stepped closer, something deep within me stirred a realization that the unraveling of Sophie's story was just beginning, one I had never anticipated would lead to heartbreak that could change everything. The dim light from the flickering street lamp bathed the warehouse in a nauseating glow, accentuating the truths lurking in the shadows. Lucas strolled closer, his footsteps measured and deliberate, and I felt the air thicken, heavy with tension and unspoken words. Sophie tensed beside me. I could feel her fear radiating like heat from an open flame, and I had no words to soothe it. If Lucas was here, it meant the confrontation we'd all been dreading was upon us. My heart pounded in my chest, a drum urging me to protect Sophie at all costs. Do you really think you could outrun me? Lucas taunted, a smirk dancing on his lips. You must know by now that my reach extends far beyond the physical. David stepped forward, positioning himself protectively between Lucas and us. Stay away from her, Lucas. You don't know what you're messing with. There's so much you don't understand. David, Lucas replied, amusement flickering in his eyes as if he relished the conflict. And doing what you think is protecting Sophie may only lead to more pain. The truth is a tether, and it binds us all. Enough of your riddles. I snapped, my voice unexpectedly steady, a flicker of defiance igniting within me. What do you want from her? Lucas' gaze shifted, momentarily landing on Sophie. It's not what I want. It's what she deserves to know. After all, keeping secrets is exhausting. You'd think she would have learned that by now. Sophie flinched, tears welling in her eyes, each drop a testament to the battles she had fought in silence. What do you mean? What do you know about me? Her voice trembled, an infusion of hope and dread. It was a voice I had grown to cherish, now rendered vulnerable by the weight of the unknown. Everyone has a past, Sophie, Lucas replied, a striking sincerity in his tone that momentarily pierced through the facade of malice. But yours, it's more intricate than you realize. You've thought of yourself as an escapee, but what if I told you that your history has been intertwined with mine far longer than you suspect? The shadows lengthened, and I could feel the fraying edges of truth erupting like a storm ready to consume us all. Lucas possessed power within his words, and I couldn't afford to let him unravel Sophie's delicate composure. Yet, in that moment of vulnerability, I noticed a flicker in her Aisa spark ignited by the chaos, illuminating her inner resilience. Sophie's voice was resolute, breaking the tremor of uncertainty. I don't care what you think you know. My past is mine to claim or discard. You have no power over me anymore. Lucas merely raised an eyebrow, unfazed by her fierce declaration. Determination alone won't shield you from the truth, love. You're part of a story that is far too complex for either of us to escape alone. As he stepped closer, I felt an urge to act, but David stayed my hand, his gaze locked onto Lucas with an urgency that warned against rashness. Lucas, whatever connections you're trying to unearth won't accomplish anything. We're done being marionettes in your theater of secrets, dada. But isn't it fascinating how intertwined we all are? Lucas said, his voice almost a song as he began to circle us, each word an arrow of discomfort. Did you ever wonder how we ended up here? The inevitable pull of our choices has led to this moment a finer web than any of us anticipated. Stop it, Sophie shouted, her voice breaking, the struggle within her evident as she grappled for clarity. What do you want? Why do you keep coming back to me? The shadows shifted eerily, and in the silence that followed, I sensed the stage was set for a revelation. Lucas' smile faded as he leveled his gaze at Sophie, his demeanor transforming with an unsettling sincerity. Because, Sophie, you are not who you think you are. Your past, it's a riddle that contains more sorrow than even you can comprehend. And the truth will unravel everything you've held so tightly. What are you saying? She took a step back, crushed by an overwhelming deluge of uncertainty. I felt a surge of anger rise again, like molten lava brewing beneath the surface. Lucas took a deep breath, his expression darkening, cutting through the chaos with an almost gentle gravity. Your mother, she was not just a victim of circumstance. She made choices, Sophie, choices that will ripple through your life. Ones that could change everything you think you know. The truth about her is your legacy. The rush of his words felt like a tidal wave crashing over us. I felt Sophie's body stiffen, the vibrant light in her eyes clouding under stormy shadows. David looked on, stricken silent, while my own heart plummeted into uncertainty. What do you mean? She whispered, stunned, the terror of her own history casting a long shadow over her spirit. And just like that, the world tilted precariously, teetering on the brink of unraveling, filled with fear and yearning. The secrets held tight within her past were set to erupt, threatening to shatter the fragile bond we had built, leaving behind only echoes of the hearts that would either mend or break under the weight of unspoken truths. And as Lucas wrapped up his chilling revelation, waiting for the impact of his words to sink in, I realized we had stepped into a storm far more potent than the shadows that chased us. The rabbit hole of Sophie's history was bound to connect us all in ways we never expected, pulling us closer to the brink of despair. With one final exchange of flickers between Sophie and me, I knew our destinies were no longer merely intertwined, they were irrevocably intertwined, straining against the unseen ties of heartbreak and revelation yet to unfurl. The weight of Lucas's words hung heavily in the air, an invisible shroud pressing down on all of us. Sophie's face, once full of defiant light, now dulled, as if the vibrant color had been washed away. The thought of her mother, once a nurturing presence in her life, now overshadowed by a figure cloaked in secrets and choices made long ago, felt like a dagger to my heart. "Stop it, Lucas!" I cried, my voice echoing against the cold, unforgiving walls of the warehouse. "You have no right to manipulate her like this. Whatever truth you hold, it doesn't change who Sophie is." Sophie's eyes darted to me, searching for solace, and I channeled every ounce of love and resolve I had into my gaze. I could see the fear that clung to her like mist, but I needed her to know I wouldn't let her face this darkness alone. Lucas merely chuckled, a sound devoid of warmth, then turned to Sophie with a mockery of sympathy. You have to understand, darling. Your identity is built on the very lies you've been sheltered from. Ignoring your past won't free you, it will just bind you tighter. The only way out is through. Through what? More pain. Sophie shot back, her voice shaky but fierce. Through understanding. Through knowing. His eyes sparkled with a twisted sense of fulfillment. And perhaps, through forgiveness. Forgiveness? She spat, confusion tangled with burgeoning rage. Forgiveness for what? Her choices? The scars they left? You're mad. In that moment, I understood that Lucas' cruelty was not just about control, but about a fascination with the destruction of others' realities. I had to shift the momentum to turn this into something we could navigate together. David, too, sensed the moment slipping away. Let's go, Sophie. Whatever he's playing at, we don't need to engage. We'll figure this out ourselves. But Lucas stepped forward, his expression shifting, softer and somehow more dangerous. You can run all you want, but if you think a new chapter can erase the previous ones, you're mistaken. All you're trying may lead you to a revelation more agonizing than your deepest fears. The room felt smaller, the shadows creeping closer, dripping with despair. I searched Sophie's face for some sign of resilience, a hint of the girl I knew, and then I saw Ida Brave flicker, a determination to stand her ground even in the darkest storm. But I won't let you control me. Lucas, she said, voice steadier now, even as her hands trembled slightly. Tell me the truth, if that's really what you want. But know that my story is mine, and no one gets to dictate its worth. For an instant, shock punctuated the air between us. Something shifted within Lucas. Maybe even appreciation danced in his eyes for her defiance, though twisted in his own unique way. In that charged moment, a small figure appeared at the entrance of the warehouse, a girl no older than 10, clutching a threadbare teddy bear to her chest. She looked around, her wide eyes filled with innocence and panic, unaware of the tempest brewing inside. Is everyone okay? She called, her voice young and fragile. In her naivety, she offered a momentary pause from the tumult, like a single ray of sunshine piercing through a storm cloud. Lucas stood there shocked, his cruel facade momentarily fractured. Lily, you shouldn't be here, he exclaimed, the warmth he previously wielded as a weapon now transformed into something protective, instinctual. The girl approached cautiously, her gaze darting from him to us, sensing the danger but not understanding its depth. I heard shouting. I thought someone was hurt, she whispered, her small voice barely above a tremor. Sophie knelt down, instinctively reaching out, her nurturing side surfacing amidst the chaos. We're okay, sweetie. Just a little misunderstanding. I watched as Lucas visibly composed himself, the shadow of his menace diminishing in the little girl's presence. The warmth of her innocence enveloped the scene, a reminder of kindness amid cruelty. For a fleeting moment, the world felt a little lighter, and I could see how Sophie's heart softened, the shards of anxiety temporarily dulled by the girl's concern. But as quickly as the moment had arrived, it vanished. Lucas turned back to us, a hard edge creeping back into his demeanor. Be careful, Sophie. Your past may not just haunt you. It may reach out to the ones you choose to protect. As he stepped further into the shadows, I realized there was a darkness creeping behind him too, one that threatened Lily's innocence, one that could bind us all together in ways we never expected. The revelation of our intertwined destinies loomed larger, leaving me with a sinking dread. That revelation, I feared, was only the beginning, and unbeknownst to us all, the secrets that had clung to Sophie were ready to burst forth, entwining their threads with those of the innocent girl who now stood among us. What Lucas knew could unravel everything, exposing us to vulnerabilities we hadn't yet faced together. With our paths forging deeper into uncertainty, I felt the urgency to uncover the truth before it became a shackle, before it tore us apart. As the waves of questions crashed over me, I turned to Sophie, who was already seeking answers in the lines of my face, answers that lay just out of reach, a promise already weighed down by the secrets we had yet to unearth. The warehouse shuddered, an echo of uncertainty reverberating through its cold steel walls. Lucas had withdrawn momentarily, but the shadows he cast lingered, wrapping around us with tendrils of unease. I glanced at Sophie, whose expression was a canvas of turmoil, searching for reassurance even as her heart wrestled with the sting of revelation. "Should we take her home?" I whispered, nodding towards Lily, who stood clutching her teddy bear, her small hands trembling slightly. Sophie's gaze remained fixed on the little girl, her heart clearly drawn to the innocent soul snared in this web of darkness. "Yes," Sophie replied, her voice low but determined. "We have to protect her. I won't let Lucas do to her what he did to me." Lily looked up, her innocent face a stark contrast to the shadows that danced around us. "Can I come with you?" she asked, her wide eyes brimming with trust meant to shield her from the harsh realities about to unfold. "Of course you can," I assured her. "We'll keep you safe." But the sincerity of my words felt thin, like a frail paper trying to withstand the weight of a storm. As we turned to leave, the tension in the air gnawed at me. Lucas might have retreated, but the specter of his influence loomed large, and we were not free from the grasp of his manipulation just yet. I felt the frantic beat of my heart, urging me to confront Sophie. "We need to talk. We need to figure this out before he uses Lily against us." Sophie closed her eyes briefly, a moment of stillness before the tempest. "I know," she said, reaching for my hand. "A simple connection, but one that bound us together amidst the chaos. But how can I explain to Lily about the past?" "We don't have to explain everything to her," I reassured her, though even I wasn't convinced. "Just keep her close, for now. Let's get out of this place." With every cautious step we took together, I could feel the weight of impending truths threatening to stifle my breath, eager to rise to the surface. The journey to the exit felt endless, as though the shadows clung tighter with every passing moment. I dared to glance back at Lucas, but all that remained of him was a dark silhouette, a whisper in the night that warned us to be wary. Once we stepped outside, the air felt clearer yet still fraught with uncertainty. The cool breeze kissed my cheeks, offering a sense of fleeting freedom, but Lily's small voice shattered the moment like glass. "Will we always be together?" she asked, eyes glistening like she'd seen something deeper, something she shouldn't have. Sophie knelt down, looking the girl in the eyes. "Always, Lily. We're a family now," she said, determination lacing her voice. But I could see the cracks behind that brave facade, uncertainty pooling just beneath the surface, the heavy shadow of secrets ready to spill over. "Can I tell you a secret?" Lily whispered conspiratorially, her voice like a fragile thread in the wind. Sophie leaned closer, her heart reflecting empathy, as any nurturing spirit would. Of course. There was a momentary pause, a lull before the storm. "The big man with the cold eyes, he's hiding something, isn't he?" "I can feel it." I froze, a chill skittering down my spine. Had Lily really perceived the darkness in Lucas? Or was it the fundamental truth manifesting through the eyes of innocence? Sophie's expression hardened. A mixture of protectiveness and dread washed over her as I recognized that she must grapple with the truth of her own existence while trying to shield Lily from the harrowing revelations to come. "That I won't let him hurt you," Sophie promised, her voice trembling slightly. "I don't want to be hurt," Lily replied, clutching the bear tighter, her voice wobbling. "But what about your hurt? It's okay to have hurt too, you know? You don't have to pretend." The simplicity of her words pierced through the tension, forcing both Sophie and me to confront the weight of our collective burdens. Could we really carry the pain without facing it? At that moment, Sophie's resolve seemed to shudder. "I need to know, David," she whispered, barely above a breath. "What is he hiding? I feel like it's all woven together somehow, something that could change everything." Before I could respond, a cacophony of voices and footsteps erupted nearby, shattering the fragile bubble of our contemplative moment. A group of teenagers loomed toward the edge of the warehouse, their laughter ricocheting through the air, a stark reminder of life outside our turmoil, a painful juxtaposition painted against the backdrop of our unease. Just then, one of them spotted us. "Hey, what's going on?" A smirk crept onto his face as he approached, his eyes narrow and scrutinizing, like a predator sniffing out a weakness. In that instant, Lucas reappeared in my Minda specter, threatening to erase the possibility of any safety we had just began to carve out for our little family. Panic gripped me tightly as I exchanged glances with Sophie. Could this be another trick? An attempt to further unravel us in plain sight? "Stay close," I urged, pulling Lily and Sophie to my side. ready to shield them from whatever darkness threatened to rise as we stepped back into the uncertainties of the world. But as I looked to the horizon, a chilling thought crept in. What if the heartbreaking truths we were seeking were not only buried in Sophie's past, but also stitched into the lives of those surrounding us? Little did we know that kindness could also unearth the kind of secrets that brought lightning storms. My heart sank as our new, fragile bond hung in the balance, with new challenges threatening to tear at the seams just as we began to feel hopeful again. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows along our way as we cautiously navigated the uneven pavement. Each step felt like a hefty deposit into the ever-depleting well of optimism we clung to. I held my breath, half expecting the laughter of the approaching teenagers to morph into mocking specters, dragging us back into the familiar clutches of despair. Sophie kept her grip on Lily's hand firm, the small girl's grasp like a lifeline grounding her as we advanced. My body tensed at the unexpected intrusion. The kids were boisterous and free, openly unaware of the burdens that weighed us down. The sharpness of nostalgia bit at me. I wanted to be like them, to laugh without fear or dread. But that felt like a memory from a world too distant to reach. The first teenager reached us, a boy with unkempt hair and a nose ring, his demeanor exuding misplaced bravado. "What's up? You lost or something?" he asked, a grin plastered across his face, oddly compelling in its innocence, yet ringing false. I could see the hesitation flickering in Sophie's eyes. She wanted to shield Lily from any confrontation, but this felt like an unspoken test. "Just passing through," I replied, attempting to sound casual as I shifted into a protective stance. The tension hung palpably in the air, a taut wire ready to snap. The group shifted closer, revealing their interest as they exchanged glances laced with curiosity. Each face told its own story of worry, of reckless youth, of life untainted by the shadows we were grappling with. "Really?" the boy replied, tilting his head slightly. "You look like you've seen better days." Our situation must have been striking against the backdrop of their carefree existence. I could feel them sizing us up, attempting to decipher our uneasy aura. "Just some family stuff," Sophie interjected, her voice laced with a softness that surprised me. It was as if she was seeking a refuge in her own words, hoping for understanding, for connection. Ultimately, the boy's expression shifted, becoming almost contemplative. He looked at Lily, and a flicker of empathy passed across his face. "I get it. Family can be rough sometimes. You need a crew to watch your back, you know?" He shrugged, perhaps more to reassure himself than any of us. But I sensed a sincerity buried amidst it all. "Yeah," I said, caught off guard by the vulnerability in his brief moment of reflection. "We've had a rough patch, but we're working it out. You need help?" he offered unexpectedly, turning his focus back to the group beside him. "Benny's great at fixing stuff if you need anything. Like rides or whatever, we can help you out." Out of nowhere, that simple act of kindness swept over me like a spring rain, a reminder that amid the chaos, there were those who still believed in connection. But shadows loomed large, and a momentary flicker of trust threatened to drown in the depths of our secrets. "Thanks," I managed to say, but I could feel Sophie's gaze piercing through me, a reminder that trust, in any form, came with strings attached. Lucas lurked in the shadows, ready to pounce should we falter. Their laughter carried on, wrapping our world in a strange camaraderie. I wondered aloud, what if Lucas tries to find out where we are? What if he sends someone after us? "Hey," the boy interrupted, seeming affronted. "We're not his henchmen, all right? We're just kids." There was something about his attitude that made me pause. He had crossed a threshold of empathy, connecting with Lily on a level untouched by darkness even for a fleeting moment. "Sorry," I said, looking at him directly. "It's just things have been complicated. We've all got our baggage, man," he replied, his shoulders relaxing a little. "Whatever it is, it doesn't have to shadow your whole life." It struck me then how easy the share of burdens felt when kindness met an open heart. Connections began to form unexpectedly, threading their way through our small group like light in the dark. But just as hope crept back in, I felt that nagging sensation on a riptide waiting to drag us under. After the teenagers insisted on walking us partway home, layers of tension began to unravel like the frayed edges of an old garment. They shared stories of their own struggles, lost siblings, parents leaving, poverty, and for a moment, the weight didn't feel so isolating. But just as we reached the corner of our street, a strange figure caught my eye, a silhouette lurking just beyond the lamppost's glow. My heart slammed against my ribs as recognition washed over me like icy water. Lucas, I breathed, panic rising, the laughter of the teenagers fading into a distant murmur. Go back. Now, I shouted, instinctively pulling Sophie and Lily close. I could hardly breathe as the ominous figure stepped into the light, his cold eyes shimmering with menace, fixated not just on us, but on something deeper, darker. If sensing our terror, one of the teenagers turned, eyes widening. What's wrong? He asked, voice edged with concern, clueless to the lurking dread that threatened to consume our fleeting sanctuary. Sophie held tighter to Lily, protecting her with every ounce of strength she possessed, but as Lucas approached, that comforting connection seemed to dissipate like fog beneath the morning sun. My stomach churned, the dread shifting into desperation as I grasped the severity of the moment. Get out of here, I barked at the teens, feeling the rush of fear spike higher within me. But they hesitated, their curiosity anchoring them in place. And I realized the bell tolling in the silence was not just about Lucas, it was about the truth about us that was clawing to get out, the secrets begging for the light of day. David, Sophie whispered urgently, her eyes pleading with the unsaid. What do we do? And with that, time slowed, balancing precariously on a knife's edge between the possibility of hope and the reality of impending chaos. Just as our worlds threatened to collide, I knew one undeniable truth. Nothing would ever be the same again. The world spun on its axis, piercing the heavy mist of tension that wrapped around us as tight as a noose. Lucas stood there, a figure cloaked in shadows, power radiating from the very core of his being. Each step he took toward us felt like a thunderclap against the fragile bonds we had begun to weave, bonds I feared might snap at any moment. Sophie. It warms my heart to see you still floundering, he said with a smirk that twisted my insides. Have you really grown so attached to this little makeshift family? How quaint. Rage surged through me, a wild tempest battling against the dread that gripped my throat. All I wanted was to shield Sophie and Lily from whatever darkness Lucas threatened to unleash. You don't get to play with people's lives like this, I spat, stepping forward, my body acting on primal instinct. Whatever twisted game you're playing, but he held up a hand, cutting me off. It's not a game, Sam. It never was. You think you're protecting her, but the truth is Lucas' gaze flickered to Sophie, and suddenly, I felt like the very ground might fall out from under us. She has no idea what she's walked into. Sophie flinched, tightening her hold on Lily as she drew closer, fear spilling out like fragile petals in a storm. What do you mean, Lucas? Her voice wavered, uncertainty washing over her, but deep down, I could feel a pulse of courage stirring. She was searching for the truth, even if it terrified her. The silence around us thickened, and I could see the struggle unfolding within her, balancing hope against the shadows of doubt. You think any of this proclaims love or family? This is an illusion, Lucas replied sharply. It's a facade to shield you from what lies ahead. You need to know who you truly are, and what you mean to those who occupy the darkness. There, in that heartbeat of charged silence, a surge of fierce protectiveness ignited within me. You won't hurt her again, Lucas. I promise you that. My voice ran steady, anchoring both me and Sophie. Yet he dismissed me with a wave, turning his full attention back to her. This isn't just about you, Sophie. It's about your mother. The legacy she left behind is waiting for you, and it's sinister. You carry secrets within you that you don't even comprehend. Secrets? Sophie echoed, her voice cracking, fear threading through her tone. What kind of secrets? Enough to shatter your world, sweetheart. Lucas leaned closer, his breath catching in the wind, an almost unnerving gentleness edging his words. If you only knew how much your past is intertwined with mine. The darkness sank into the fabric of our confrontation, and I caught the glimmer of something flicker in Sophie's eyes, a blend of curiosity and terror. You're lying, she cried, trembling. You have no right to manipulate me like this. With a sudden movement, Lucas stepped back, raising his hands in mock surrender, yet his gaze remained fixed. I'm not here to manipulate, but rather to free you. Only by confronting your past can you truly embrace the future. Enough, I shouted, stepping in front of Sophie. We're done playing your little mind games, Lucas. You can't instill fear and you won't divide us. His eyes gleamed, shadows swirling like a tempest. Protect all you want, Sam. But in the end, the choices we make shape who we are. It's only a matter of time before those choices come to collect. Then, as if uncanny timing orchestrated by the universe, a heavy silence blanketed the scene, a swirling vortex of unresolved tension. All at once, chaos ensued. The distant sound of sirens pierced the air, red and blue lights starting to flicker through the cracks of the street. Damn it, Lucas cursed under his breath, his demeanor shifting from playful tormentor to a predator on the hunt. This isn't over, Sophie. Not even close. Remember, reality is rarely what it seems. Let's go? I urged, pulling Sophie and Lily away with a resolve only fear could produce. Just as we turned to sprint down the street, the realization hit me hard. Lucas' ominous words echoed like sirens in my mind. Laden with urgency, as we ran, I felt the heavy weight of Sophie's presence. Beside me, her heartbeat matching mine in a rhythm of both fear and hope. Each footfall seemed to carry the burden of all we had faced, and for each step away from Lucas, the memory of his words clawed at my thoughts. Time was running out. Our identities were intricately woven together, and whatever past secrets emerged would reshape us, for better or worse. Keep moving, I urged, sensing an urgency to disappear, to become anything but the targets we had been. We'll find answers, but only if we stick together. Lily, still clinging tightly to Sophie, cast timid glances back at the shadows seeping around us, trying to piece together the fragments of reason. Will we be okay? She asked, her small voice trembling under the weight of uncertainty. Always, Sophie replied, though I could see the flicker of doubt wrestling within her mind's eye. With my heart pounding, I glanced over my shoulder just in time to see Lucas slip into the shadows, a ghost haunting the remnants of our escape. Outside, the sounds of the city hummed with life. We raced towards certainty, away from darkness, with nothing but the promise of each other resonating through the fears that bound us. As we dashed further into the depths, a realization struck minute only were secrets breathing down our necks. But they threatened to emerge from shadows, intertwining us in ways neither of us could imagine. Yet, somewhere within the chaos was a faint glimmer of hope. I squeezed Sophie's hand tight, silently vowing to protect what we could, to piece together the fragments of our fates still awaiting revelation. But the past didn't fade lightly. It clung like shadows that refused to dissipate, poised to confront the truth that lay dormant within. And just as the city's sirens began to fade, I heard Sophie draw in a bray of the steely resolve that would steady the raging storm swirling around our intertwined destinies. In that moment of desperation, the weight of our future hung delicately in the balance, leading to a truth I now realized. Every choice we made from then on was a step toward light or darkness, a dance between love and the haunting grip of our histories yet to unfurl. The winds shifted as we hurried forward into the heart of uncertainty, the unfolding story still waiting to reveal itself. And deep within my soul, I sensed this would be a journey not just for Sophie, but for each of us, a journey toward forgiveness, acceptance, and ultimately the unfolding of a truth that would bind us all together, forever changed by the past, yet roaring toward an unpredictable future. But in the shadows, Lucas lingered, a phantom weaving through the tension, a reminder that sometimes the heart must confront the deepest of fears to emerge into the light, ready to embrace whatever love awaited beyond the unseen horizon.